Hello friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today we will be discussing about the Air India disinvestment. We will see what happened with Air India. Already we have discussed this topic in detail, but briefly we will discuss what happened with Air India. Also we will see why the disinvestment plans is getting delayed for Air India and what should the government do now at this point of time. So let us first come to the current affair. The current affair is that the Air India, it was once an iconic airline. So, for the last 4 decades, that is for the last 40 years, it has seen or witnessed a loss. So, loss in the sense that the profit margins have come down and it is also undergoing debt. So, the debt of the airlines have tremendously increased in the last 4 decades. Now, one factor for this is the increased competition. So Air India had to face stiff competition in the market with the coming up of foreign players as well as private domestic players. So one factor was the competition, especially when the low-cost airways were introduced in India like the Indigo, SpiceJet, etc. Air India had to face a very stiff competition. So these are all the factors that have influenced the loss of Air India. Now let us come to the story in brief. Let us see how did this disinvestment plan came up and how did it got delayed. So coming to the disinvestment plan and everything. So first let us discuss about the DCI's recommendations. So DCI is the Disinvestment Commission of India. So it is Disinvestment Commission of India. Now in the late 1990s we have seen that the loss making scenario started 4 decades back. So in 1990s, the government recognized that there was a gradual decline in the service standards of Air India. So the service standards or the quality of the service in Air India came down and this was noticed by the government in late 1990s. Now, after that, the government referred this matter to DCI, that is the Disinvestment Commission of India. And the recommendation of DCI was that the government should reduce or dilute the ownership of government in Air India to 40%. That is, government should reduce its shareholding in Air India to 40%. So this was disinvestment or selling up of the shares. So this was the recommendation of the DCI. Now, after this recommendation, what happened? Why did the disinvestment plan fail? Now coming to the failure of disinvestment plan, the effort of the then government, that is in the late 1990s, the then government did not succeed because of many factors. One was the bureaucratic hustles, like bureaucracy was very late in clearing the papers, so bureaucratic hustle. Second one, the role of private airline promoters, so increased competition in the market. So these were all certain reasons why the disinvestment plan did not work out. Now, if the disinvestment plans worked out in 1990s itself, Air India would not have incurred such huge losses now. Now, what happened later on? The disinvestment plans did not work out, and later on what happened is that in 2004, that is the period commencing from 2004, the Air India acquired aircraft in affordable numbers. So the decision of the Air India to acquire aircrafts in unaffordable numbers. So this was one reason. That means they bought many aircrafts and this became unaffordable and this increased the debt of the airlines. So this was one factor. Again, second factor was the merger with the Indian Airlines. So these two factors together increased the debt of the Air India. Now coming to the competition part. So competitively, Air India was only placed very low. This was especially when the private players and the foreign players came into the market after the 1991 reforms. After globalization, privatization and liberalization, the private players as well as the global players, the foreign players came to the market. This increased the competition in the market and it was very difficult for Air India to survive. So these were the reasons. Now coming to the impact. So the impact of the lack of strategic direction. It was in the year 2009, in the month of June, that for the first time the financial situation or the poor health of the financial situation of Air India was first published. So this was done by the then chairman of Air India. So he published the financial situation for the first time in 2009 June. And the government being a public company, Air India is a public company, and being a public company, the owner is the government, and government is responsible for taking actions. So the government, instead of tackling the core problem, what was the core problem here? The core problem here was lack of strategic decision making and also operational direction. So instead of tackling the core problem, the government decided to focus on a financial package. Now, what is meant by a financial package? Financial package means injecting more money into the company or into the government enterprise. So government infused more money in order to resolve this issue. Instead of focusing on the core problem to address the bottlenecks, the structural issues, government focused on providing a financial package to the airlines. And the bailout package of over 30,000 crore rupees were infused into the airline on a period of 8 years. So in almost 8 years, the government infused 30,000 crore into the airlines. And this capital infusion or this financial package did not help the Air India in any ways. Now, coming to several factors on which the survival of the Air India is dependent on. First one is induction of professional management. So professionalism with an effective leadership. Second one, a sound financial package that does not come with political interference. Now third one is the unions allowing changes in work conditions and pay packages. So these are the three core issues that needs to be addressed. First one, Air India should get some professionals. Effective leadership should be introduced. Second one, financial packages are okay, but it should not be under the political interference. Now third one, the role of the unions. So government should be able to reach at a flexible conclusion where the work conditions and the pay packages can be revised. So all these core issues were not addressed. The factors that influences the survival of the Air India, it was not addressed, but rather just financial package was introduced. Now, coming to Niti Aayog's recommendations. And Niti Aayog, the policy think tank of the Government of India, in the year 2017, Niti Aayog recommended for disinvestment of Air India. So, disinvestment is selling of the shares of Air India or privatization of Air India. So, this recommendation was made in the year 2017. But what happened? The government decided to retain 24% of equity, and also the government wanted the acquirer to absorb a major chunk of the non-aircraft related debt. So these were the two problems. We have already discussed about this problem in detail, just briefing it to you. So after the Niti Aayog recommendation in 2017, the government came up with two conditions. Even though the government was willing for a disinvestment, it said that the government will hold further 24% of the shares. And secondly, it also said that the acquirer should absorb a major chunk of the non-aircraft related debt. And these conditions were very difficult for an acquirer, for a private player to accept. So that is why the delay is again and again amplifying the problem. And even now the government cannot reach at a conclusion regarding the disinvestment of Air India. Now moving on, let us come to the opposition to disinvestment. Who are the stakeholders who oppose the disinvestment decision of the government? Now, first factor here what we need to understand is that there are a lot of emotional connection with Air India. And these emotional factors are one factor that influences the sale or the disinvestment of Air India. Now, the emotional factors like people or the stakeholders claim that Air India had a glorious past. Also, the role of Air India in the national development in the past, etc. So, these are all the emotional factors. Now, other stakeholders, for example, the opposition parties, they are to a larger extent against the disinvestment decision. Also, the unions. So they are all certain stakeholders who are against this decision. Also, the successive chairpersons, they have claimed a turnaround in Air India's fortunes. That means they are optimistic about a better future for Air India. And these turnaround expectations, these are reasons that are cited by the unions and also the politicians, the political parties, especially the opposition parties, for opposing the disinvestment decision. Now, what is the way ahead? What does the government need to do now? Anyway, the government has decided on the disinvestment of Air India. So, the government will have to carry on this disinvestment decision, and also the government should make it sure that the government will not spare further infusion. That is, government will not induce more money into the loss making PSU. And the government should also ensure that there is a total exit. That is, government should not maintain certain shares, but instead government should share 100% of the government holding in the PSU Air India. So this is what the government needs to focus now. And now let us come to a mains model question. The question is, what do you understand by disinvestment? Critically examine the policy of disinvestment in India. So in the first part of the question, you have to explain what is disinvestment. You have to explain your understanding about disinvestment. In the second part of the question, you have to critically examine the policy of disinvestment in India. So these are the two parts of the question. Let us try to answer this question. First, coming to the first part, that is disinvestment. Let us see what is disinvestment. Now, disinvestment means the act of either selling or liquidating of the assets. So the process of dilution of the government's share in a PSU or a public sector undertaking, it is called disinvestment. So dilution of government's share or government's stake in a PSU is called disinvestment. Now with disinvestment, it allows the transferring of the government's enormous public debt of the PSU to the private sector. Now in case of Air India, we have seen that Air India has a huge debt. So this debt, the public debt, will be transferred to the private sector. So disinvestment, in most cases, they are primarily motivated by the optimization of resources in order to deliver maximum returns. Now, one thing to be remembered here is that when we talk about a public sector undertaking, we must understand that it is the asset of the government. So, government's asset means it is the asset of the public. So, it is a responsibility of the government to gain maximum returns from the asset and deliver it to the public. So, disinvestment is one step where the government tries to maximize the efficiency of the government resources or the public resources. Now, coming to the disinvestment policy in India, the government of India has decided to privatize the public sector enterprises in a gradual and phased manner through disinvestment. So, this will be done bringing down the government's equity in all non-strategic PSUs. Non-strategic means certain strategic PSUs, that is certain PSUs where the government has the responsibility to deliver the services. For example, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, Indian Railways. So, other than the non-strategic PSUs, the government has decided to bring down the share of the government to 26% or low in a phased manner. And the government has also decided to permit up to 49% disinvestment of equity so that the government will continue to hold a majority of 51%. Now coming to the benefits of the disinvestment. So benefits are for many stakeholders. First, for the government. So the benefits of disinvestment to the government is that, first of all, it will reduce the debt of the government. Second one, it will save the resources of the government so that the government can spend less on the PSUs and the rest of the money can be spent for welfare purposes. Also, thirdly, it will reduce the fiscal deficit because by increasing the disinvestment, the revenue of the government will increase, further reducing the fiscal deficit. Now, the government will also be able to raise funds in order to strengthen the infrastructure, social infrastructure and physical infrastructure. So, these are the benefits for the government. Now, benefits for the society. For the society, as the government will increase its spending on infrastructure and welfare activities, the society will gain out of the welfare spending of the government. Secondly, it will also ensure better services to the public. And third one, private companies will expand. After disinvestment, the private companies will expand and this will create further employment opportunities in the economy. Now coming to the benefits to the market. For the market, the private players will bring in more competition. So increased competition will increase the quality of the services. Now second one, the profitability of the companies will increase, thereby more investments, private investments will increase. Now for the PSUs, for the public sector undertaking itself, this will lead to modernization of their services. This is because private players will be able to infuse more capital. And secondly, this will also help in the distribution of loss and failure risk. So these are all the benefits of disinvestment. And you can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com. You can also follow my Facebook page for more video updates. You can write to me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your queries and clarification. Thank you.